Election is crucial to the building of every democracy. Election is everybody's business. As Liberians prepare to go to the polls, Public Trust Media Group (PTMG) presents 2023 Elections Update, keeping track of the electoral process. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. Ballots, not bullets. I'm Frank Sainworla in Monrovia, and this is edition number 1 of Elections Update, a PTMG production in partnership with this station and several other radio stations every week, and as a podcast online.
Wake up, mother library, wake up, wake up. Wake up, mother library, wake up. The word is here to wake you up.
In the lead up to the October 10 polls, this program will bring you in-depth coverage of the elections. What lessons have we learned from past elections? We'll be focusing on the issues, not personalities. Also, spotlight will be put on the laws, guidelines, and regulations governing the electoral process, as well as civic roles and responsibilities of both voters and those to be voted for. This program also promotes free, fair, transparent, credible, and violence-free presidential and legislative elections. So stay focused on the issues in the countdown to the October polls on 2023 Elections Update.
This is the time we come together to keep our country fit forever.
Here are what edition number 1 will be updating you on today. First, who is eligible to vote under Liberian law? The importance of civic and voter education. How intensive CVE can increase citizens' participation in the electoral process and drastically reduce the high number of invalid votes during elections.
Over the years, we've had civic educators in each electoral district, sometimes one or two, given the availability of funding. But we felt that it yielded no good results for us.
A NEC official tells us the CVE strategy of the Commission amid the delay in the start of the biometric voter registration. The Elections Coordinating Committee (ECC) is not happy with the delay in the start of voter registration.
That because it's the first time we'll be using this biometric voter registration, and if we don't do it well, it will pose some risk, it could pose some challenges that could equally undermine the quality of our elections coming 2023.
Our reporter gets an exclusive with the head of the ECC, Councillor Oscar Blow, who welcomes the biometric voter registration, but with reservations. Why? We'll be hearing from ordinary Liberians about how prepared they are to register and what they know about biometric voter registration. Also coming up, a new research study shows Liberians have very little understanding of democracy as a model of governance. Liberian elections expert Josiah Jokai gives us the research findings.
The understanding of Liberians of the concept of democracy as the governance model is very little.
All coming up on edition number 1 of 2023 Elections Update.
Wake up, mother library, wake up, wake up. Wake up, mother library, wake up. The word is here to wake you up.
Ahead of the October 2023 elections, a key process that must take place is the registration of voters, people who will meet the criteria under Liberian law to cast the ballots on that day. But who is eligible to vote? This is contained in Article 3 of the Voter Registration Regulation in the country's new elections law, as provided for under Article 77 of the Liberian Constitution.
Section 3.1 says, a Liberian citizen who has attained or reached the age of 18 years or older may register as a voter, except one who has been judicially declared to be incompetent or of unsound mind, who has been disenfranchised as a result of conviction of an infamous crime and has not been restored to citizenship. Section 3.2 says a person must register to vote at the voter registration center established by the NEC for the place where he or she ordinarily resides. Section 3.3 says no person shall be allowed to register more than once during the registration period.
The biometric voter registration process for the October 10 presidential and legislative elections was first due to have started on December 15, 2022, but that failed to happen last year due to internal wrangling among officials of the National Elections Commission (NEC) on the one hand, and between NEC and PPCC, the Public Procurement and Concession Commission. Why? Of course, it was over awarding of contract for the printing of biometric voter registration materials. The row has now somewhat been resolved, and a new date has been set for the start of the biometric voter registration. NEC says the exercise will run from March 20 to May 11, 2023. But amid the delay and early hitches, the Elections Coordinating Committee (ECC) has expressed fears over the implications of the delay. The head of ECC, Councillor Oscar Blow, has been in conversation with our reporter Esau Farr. Councillor Blow says while ECC welcomes the biometric registration, it has some reservations.
Well, the ECC has consistently said that we do welcome the transition from the manual voter registration to the use of the biometric voter registration system, and which has the potential to improve the quality of the voter roll and to also improve the quality of our democracy. But at the same time, we have expressed concerns that because it's the first time we will be using this biometric voter registration, and if we don't do it well, it will pose some risk, it could pose some challenges that could equally undermine the quality of our elections coming 2023.
So you just spoke of risks, which is my next question. What are some of the potential risks you think they propose to our electoral system and our democracy?
Well, the biometric voter registration process should have started in December 15.
Yes.
We've gone almost past December.
Yes.
Now we've been informed by the NEC that the new timeline starts in March. So that means we run late. And if the system is not tested before the actual voter registration starts, and there are technical problems in the middle of the electoral cycle, then it will pose a risk. Then that means either will be doing a voter registration process with poor quality, will be inching into other activities of the electoral process, and therefore it may not engender the kind of participation that the electoral processes require to be able to say the outcome of a particular election is free, fair, and credible.
So, do you also foresee some constitutional crisis? Should we go beyond the given constitutional timeline for election?
Well, by law, Article 83 spells out clearly the timeline for which we have to hold elections. Second Tuesday in October of election year. And I'm worried the pace at which we go. And the pace is not enough to be able to correct any technical defect that may be encountered during the voter registration process. And if we don't complete the voter roll, then we're in problem. Because credible elections are contingent upon a credible voter roll. And if we start the voter registration in March, once we say up to 2 to 3 months, that's March, April, May. May is too close to October. That any unforeseen circumstances could risk us not having these elections by the time in keeping with the constitutional mandate.
Now, you earlier on spoke of the biometric voter registration being new, which is a fact. Are you also worried that we are not seeing more civic voter education in regards to the biometric voter registration ahead of that time that have been given in March? Do you foresee any serious implications?
For me, civic education is important to prepare the voters, particularly first-time voters, to participate in the process. But the civic education will require all citizens, not just first-time voters, but this is the first time we use the biometric voter registration system.
That was the head of the Elections Coordinating Committee ECC, Councillor Oscar Blow, in an exclusive interview with our reporter Esau Farm. Amidst concerns over delay in the start of the biometric voter registration and the virtual absence of civic and voter education, NEC has admitted there are problems. But the National Elections Commission says it has a strategy to poll CVE out to stimulate citizens' participation in the electoral process. What is that strategy? NEC's Director of Civic and Voter Education, Paul Wilson, has been telling 2023 Elections Update reporter Issa Farr about what effective civic and voter education can do to reduce the high number of invalid votes on Elections Day.
We have tried to introduce new approaches to the civic education campaign. Over the years, we've had civic educators in each electoral district, sometimes 1 or 2, given the availability of funding. But we felt that it yielded no results, no good results for us. Instead, we experienced high invalid votes, people reluctant to turn out to vote, which means that they did not understand the procedures and wished to just leave the election business and go on their own. This time, what we thought to do was to create our civic and voter education cells in each of the electoral districts. We should have about 81 civic and voter education cells across the country. What we did initially was to do an assessment. Why are we having overwhelming invalid votes? If my record sets me right, we've had over 80,000 invalid votes in past elections, and that was too much troubling for the Commission. So this board saw it as a means of introducing a new method that will give our people more understanding about what the election process is, so as to avoid this level of invalid votes and people reluctance to turn out to vote. Some people attribute that to their lawmakers not performing, but mainly the NEC is looking at it as not really doing what they should do to encourage more people to turn out to vote. And the civic education has been challenged with the issue of getting in the field earlier. Sometimes civic education is given the opportunity to get in the field at the eve of the elections. And we don't expect our people to understand, within the twinkle of an eye, what they're going to do. So this time, we thought to engage the process as soon as possible, praying that government provides the necessary funding to see how well we can start the process. So we did an assessment in the field. They commissioned us to go in the field and do an assessment to see how we can have a new approach. This time should be bottom to top approach, not top to bottom approach.
Okay.
Getting our people informed, getting our people aware, and taking the elections to the people. So we had an assessment in the field. We visited 5 counties in the field, and then we got some level of response from them. Now we should take the elections to the people. After the assessment, we came back and we decided to pilot, have an experience of what we want to do. So we piloted the process during the Lofa County senatorial by-elections. So we piloted in every electoral district will have one community-based organization. So the experience was overwhelming and welcoming.
You needed results.
Yes. We had 5 organizations, 5 electoral districts, and the level of invalid votes reduced tremendously. So we thought it was the best way of approaching.
So somebody may likely say it's because of a lack of sufficient education for the voters that have been producing the invalid votes?
Correct. That is absolutely correct.
That was the voice of the Director of Voter and Civic Education at NEC, Paul Wilson, in an interview with our man Issa Farr, here on Elections Update in the countdown to the 2023 polls.
Ladies and gentlemen, election is not war, election is not confusion, election is not animation, election is not division, election is not tribalism, election is not confrontation, election is not hatred, election is not war. I want you to let my people know that.
Well, if you've just joined us, this is 2023 Elections Update, a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to election issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections. Ballots, not bullets. Welcome, I'm Frank Sainworla. This is edition number 1. Is a Public Trust Media Group PTMG production in partnership with this station and several other radio stations every week and as a podcast online. What do ordinary Liberians think about the biometric voter registration, and what do they make of registering to vote ahead of October's elections? Our reporter Issa Farr has been on the streets of Monrovia and other parts, sampling the views of Liberians.
My name is Ben Patois.
Tell me, are you aware of the upcoming biometric voter registration process?
Definitely, yes.
How much do you know about it?
Basically, we have been told that election will be coming out sooner in October, and we are waiting to see the process becoming transparent, and because we citizens want to live a peaceful life.
But do you have an idea on how the biometric voter registration will be there?
We are not been really educated to it. Those who outside there, they do not know much about, so they need to be educated.
Are you willing to register and vote in the October election?
Yeah, sure. So I gotta make my impact.
Thank you for talking to us.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a lady here. Let's see whether we can talk with her. My sister, can you talk with us? We just want to know what you know about the voter registration that is coming.
I don't know about it.
You don't have any idea on it.
Yeah.
But are you willing to take part in the election? You register to vote? Are you willing?
The time I be here.
We just want to know whether you register to
I'll
vote.
register. I'll register. I want to get my card.
So you wouldn't want to get a card?
Yes.
Thank you for talking to us. Your name?
My name is Meta.
Okay. Meta, so we have other people on the round. We'd like to talk with this. Shaklee, we'd like to say welcome to the microphone. Your name and are
My
you?
name is Ase.
Isaac. There is a new voter registration system coming called biometric voter registration system. Do you have any idea on that?
No.
But are you willing to register to vote in the October election?
Yes.
So we are still here. We see more cyclists here. We'd like to talk with this brother. We say, welcome to the microphone. Do you want to talk with us? Gentlemen, you need to talk. This is about your country. Okay. Gentlemen, are you willing to talk? We want to get your idea on the voter registration. Can we talk with us?
I got no idea on it, man.
You don't get idea on the voter registration? The biometric voter registration. But are you willing to register to take part in the election?
Yes, I will. But the biometric registration now, we are the idea on our block for me. I'm do some year before.
Okay.
But I even see some year.
You say your name again?
My name is Asmana M. Kamara.
Mr. Kamara, thank you for talking to us.
All right.
Let's see. We see a sister here. Let's see whether we can talk with her. Ma, we let her say welcome to the media. What do you know about the biometric registration, ma? The voter registration. Do you have any idea? No idea. But are you willing to vote? Are you willing to register and vote? Okay, thank you.
As Liberians prepare to go to the polls for presidential and general elections in October this year, a new research study is out with findings showing that Liberians have very little understanding of democracy as a model of governance. A Liberian elections expert, Mr. Josiah Jokai, did the study. The author of the research study, Josiah Jokai, served as Director of Civic and Voter Education before at NEC several years ago. He's presently living in the United States. Currently, he's working on his PhD at the Alder University in the US. Mr. Jokai has been speaking with me on the phone line from the US. What does the research study say about the quality of our elections?
The study focus on elections, democratic elections, as a dimension of peace and legitimacy in Liberia. And the background was that we have experienced elections for so many years since we conducted the first elections in 1847 up to now. I know we have conducted more than 50 presidential elections. There should be about 51 now if we take into account the 2017 elections. We also conducted about 55 legislative elections since then, and 20 referenda. Referendum is another form of election.
Yeah.
So if you put all of that together, you will realize that Liberia is really experienced when it comes to voting elections and electing people for public offices. But the sad thing is that the quality of our elections have not improved. And that is reflective of the quality of leaders that Liberians continue to elect. And that also goes to speak to the quality of electoral voters. Because to put it short, is just simple to say that bad electorate elect bad leaders.
Okay, we'll come to the findings. But just tell us, what research method did you use in the study?
I use a qualitative research method and the phenomenology approach, because phenomenology is one approach that helps the researcher to glean the experiences, of the research participants in an effective way. Their experiences, their foundation understanding of the phenomena that is listed. And elections in that respect is something that people experience, the Liberians that experience all the time. So the research population was 555, which covers the employees of the Elections Commission at the time, and the leaders of political parties in Liberia at the time, and the research population from that 555 was defined with the representation.
Now, Mr. Jukai, when I read your research report, it struck me, especially the findings. It said very little understanding by Liberian citizens about the relationship between elections and the whole concept of democracy. Could you briefly walk us through these findings?
Right, so we got some of those findings that are very, very profound. I'm glad that you asked that question. So, of the total of the 35 respondents, and I will highlight just few of the key findings because you have so many of them. So, of the 55 respondents, you will have, for example, 34.5 or 19 respondents that said that democracy is much practiced in Liberia. And that funding is key because the understanding of the citizenry to the extent to which democracy is practiced in Liberia is paramount to upholding its principles and values. But if you go further down, there is a finding that also say that 34.5% or 19 respondents said that the understanding of Liberians of the concept of democracy as the governance model is very little. And I want you to pay attention to that. That is said that the understanding of Liberians of the concept of democracy as a governance model is very little. And there is another finding of the study that says that 40%, otherwise 22 of the respondents said that elections have done very little to promote democracy in Liberia. So if you just suppose those two, those that say that the concept of democracy as a governance model is very little, they are just thinking that elections have done very little to promote democracy in Liberia. But here is the main finding, and that would be the last finding that I will speak to. 58.2%, imagine 58.2% of the respondents said that democracy has done very little to improve governance in Liberia, while only 23.6% said that democracy has improved governance. So 58.2% compared to 23.2%. To me, this finding raises more questions than answers about the practices of the government and the tax and quality of services that are being provided to the people.
That was the voice of Liberian elections expert and former NEC Director of Voter and Civic Education, Josiah Jokai. Part 2, containing recommendations of the study, comes up in the next edition of this program. The study was published by the International Journal of Research and Innovation in Social Sciences. Edition number 1 of 2023 Elections Update is over. This is a half-hour radio program exclusively devoted to elections issues in the countdown to the 2023 presidential and legislative elections, a public trust media group PTMG production and presented by me, Frank Sainworla, in partnership with radio stations in the country. Ballots, not bullets.